Hey, dailies across the world. Welcome to another special edition of the Driven Daily Show. My name is Randall, and today we got a guest that's dear to my heart for many reasons. And I'm going to share a little bit about my guest with you today. My guest was involved in hip hop since 1982. 42 years ago, eh? When I was seeing that, I was like, man, I think my mom and dad were still courting each other at that time, trying to decide whether they want to make me. And then he was doing b-boying at the time. And then in 1988, founded Black Noise, which incorporated a rap group, full-on DJ, graffiti artist. And I couldn't believe that my guest has, and he will definitely correct me on this one, 13 solo albums and 13 albums with Black Noise. Interesting fact, he studied to be a school teacher. Who would have thought? Taught for 3.5 years. After discovering groups like Public Enemy, decided to jump full force into the hip-hop scene. Ladies and gentlemen, Driven Dailies, let's give him a Driven Daily welcome, and let's put our hands together for none other than Emile YX. Welcome, my brother.
Thanks, man. It was a heavy intro.
Oh, man.
Like, suddenly realized how long it was. Like, damn, it's a long time.
No, and Emile, I just want to take this time to thank you so much for doing this with me. It's been on my bucket list to do this for a long time. Wow. And otherwise, before I continue, how are you doing, my brother?
Say it again. Sorry, man, it got cut off a bit there.
Yeah, no, I was asking you, how are you doing? How's it going?
I'm all right. Just getting older, and every once in a while, I'm reminded, like, did a show, people asked me to do something in the UK. It's like, all right, I'll do one of Black Noise songs. And they don't know because they've never seen a Black Noise show. But I know because I was like, damn, there used to be like people flying all over the place, spinning on their heads. And
yeah.
Just me with a microphone and trying to do a little bit of breakdancing.
Yeah. You mentioned the UK earlier. You mentioned you came about 2 days ago from the UK. What were you up to over there?
Yeah, I'm a global fellow for Atlantic Fellowship for Racial Equity. And so, you spend like a year and a bit just graduating as one of the members of Atlantic Fellows. Okay. And yeah, so we gathered there as part of the global gathering. So people from around the world were present, basically sharing ideas, and that was dope. It was kind of weird as well because it was at Cecil John Rhodes.
Yeah, okay.
I was like, yo, my bro,
Yeah. Oh man, it sounds like a fascinating event. Hopefully, that event was recorded. Are we able to, for example, get the footage or not really? Or
I think there's different like recordings of the gathering. I don't think like the exact pieces are generally up, and I haven't seen any of it up, but it'll probably be edited, and then some of the conversations, like highlights from the conversations around the race, and like there was a conversation I was a part of around reparations. Okay. That was really interesting. So they'll probably edit it and put it up at a later stage, So, yeah.
No, I hear you. No, that's awesome. Hulle dink seker hoekom vee ek my gesig af is warm onder die ligte hier so, Emile. Now I can't help but I have to start from the beginning, and we're gonna be here for between 30 to 45 minutes. We won't keep it too long. Just for those that are joining right now, thank you for giving us your heartbeat, spending it with myself and Emile. Now you go, Emile, by the name of Emile YX. Can you just share with us what is the Y and the X for?
Yeah, my family surname is JANSEN. So it's if you think back to history, it's JANSEN, and JANSEN. It's like Jan's property. It's where the name actually comes from when it comes to people who are from the slave background. And so, when the whole Malcolm X thing happened, I was like, okay, I need to find out what's my heritage. What is, and a lot of my rhymes was about like identity. Finding my ancestry and stuff like that. And so this whole thing of the take away your family surname and put the X there. But I also wanted to constantly want to say like why, like the South African flag. like YX. Why are you using the
That's
placeholder
deep,
X?
eh?
Yeah, and then the question mark is to always like a lighty, like a kid, the kid is like, why, but why, mommy, but why? To be inquisitive, like eternally, like to always want to know, like to never be satisfied with like a standard answer. So yeah, so
Sure.
that's where the performance name comes from.
Okay. Do you ever, and I'm sure you do this, and thanks for sharing that with me. Do you ever share this with your folk, with your people on stage, or is it something that's not really touched on?
Occasionally, when people ask, then
Oh,
I'll,
okay.
I'll, I'll
Gotcha.
say it, say it out loud. But I mean, as I'm getting older, like more and more, I realize that generation is not around really anymore. The conscious hip hop heads. So explaining it became like when I tell the story, a lot of people are like, oh, we didn't even, because they don't know why people replace their surnames with X, like
Gotcha.
from that era. So it's
From
been
that.
it's been interesting just as time progresses.
No, I can imagine. One thing that drew me to you, Emile, was your love for South Africa. Everything you do, it just screams, "I love my country." Where did like? Why are you so in love with South Africa? I'm fanatic about my country, but why are you so fanatic about South Africa?
It's in this journey of discovering who I am, I found so many amazing things about South Africa that is completely unique. The fact that we in Cape Town have the most diverse DNA on the planet. I don't know if most Cape Townians know that. Like Cape Town is the most diverse, of all people. They've done tests, and that's like, proven by them, not even by us. And then attached to that is the how can you put it, like the Portuguese of humanity that that is actually not only just South Africa. I think the rest of the world is sort of in denial. Like if you ask anybody, so what's your heritage? Even if they look like they like from Sweden, they'll say, no, it's part Greek or part Italian. It's never what you think,
Yeah.
And so I find that made me realize that this illusion we have of a country is also just about the bigger picture. Like all of it makes us. When I say it out loud to people that like there are so many official languages, they're like, huh, what? And I say, yeah, there's also unofficial languages. They're like, what?
Yeah.
And then I say there's all these cultures that make up who the country is, and that South Africans don't really even know how amazing that is to have all of that heritage, So it's a mixture of a lot, but also to try and constantly find the common denominator. I think the common denominator for me is probably like the Bushman community, because it is the oldest DNA on the planet, and it influenced so much here in South Africa that people aren't even aware.
And Emile, on that point about the Bushmen, I put an asterisk mark there because I'm definitely coming to that piece, because it was so fascinating just hearing you talking about it and how. Okay, I'm just going to stop right there. We're going to come back to that part. Emile, I can imagine, especially with yourself traveling around the world, the UK and other places. Similar to myself, the more I travel, the more I realize, man, has niks soos die Kaapie. There's nothing like.
There's nothing like.
Let's just talk about the food. Like with your experiences around the world, like the food in other places compared to, what do you have to say? Sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and explain it by a small story. Like the first time Black Noise ever toured was with the United Nations. They paid for the whole group to travel to Sweden, right? So their idea is to, like, every hotel we stayed, when people give you that massive big plate with like a design vibe on it, it's a little food in a big plate, but a plain stick, So now their thought is like, this ones are gonna really appreciate this, like, me, the ones are like, yo, can we rather go to like like somewhere we are outside to go buy a mixture of like food, because this got no taste for you.
Yeah.
And so and all they asked was like, what do you eat back home? So I say, yo, actually, it's so bountiful. It's so broad range of tastes, and because we are so mixed, right? So it influenced the food. So when we said that, they were like, obviously, first, the Scandinavians, so they're very apologetic about the food not not being up to scratch.
Okay.
But anyway, so yeah, that sort of explains our people's assumption of like, and for me, that is part of the richness, man. Like often people say, now we are from like they use the terminology of economically, whatever, struggling or previously disadvantaged. But I think those terminologies is mostly referring to economics. It's not referring to the wealth of like tastes, of experiences, of history, of variety that we come from. So for me, I often I'll tell people overseas, especially, we're rich because of what we have access to. I'll tell you a short another story. We were in Torino in Italy, and this lady came to us and said, "Oh, don't you love how it looks?" And we were like, "It's okay." And because she heard again, we're from Africa, right? And we're like, she said, "Okay, this is one of the most beautiful." I said, "Lady, we from Cape Town, South Africa." She's like, "Oh, sorry," because in her mind, people are when they think Africa. But she's been to Cape Town, so when he said that, she said, "Oh, no, you guys have so access to so much more than we do." I was like, "Yo, check it, yeah."
Sure, man. And it's crazy how we as locals, especially if we haven't been out of the country and haven't been exposed, because I've been in a situation where I always think the grass is greener on the other side. And of course, certain things are greener on the other side for sure. When the electricity can stay on, it's greener on the side. But Emile, I'm so in love with what we have back home, and especially seeing the way the country is going now politically. It seems like there's a light at the end of the tunnel, aka the Minister of Sport is just taking the lead right there. I'm not sure how involved are you with politics, but just currently, what is your thoughts right now on the political state?
Look, for me, it's always about I come from a dance background, so for me, it's you can't talk it, you must show it. So I reserve comment until I see them do what they claim they're going to do. I don't really even care about the political parties anymore. I just care about that they actually fix what they say they're going to fix, and that the people start realizing that if people don't deliver, they need to be kicked out. Bottom line, you know what I mean? That's what it's really about, because they work for us in actual fact. Like this illusion that these ones work for the party isn't true. They signed up to represent the country, and so they should actually deliver on whatever promises they make or whatever their job description is supposed to be. So I'm holding my my feelings about it until I see what they do. Because I see the same in the US. There's also wherever you see that people are stuck with the same thing, that capital trumps, not excuse the pun, but capital trumps action, and political will, because it's always the money at the background that decides. You know what I mean?
I couldn't agree more. Emile, I know this is not a political talk. However, I do want to see how we can elevate every area of our country, specifically when it comes to you being in arts and culture. If the governments had if they were a genie in a bottle and they came to you, Emile, and they said, Emile JANSEN, we know we may have not supported you to the extent that maybe we should have. Share with us, how can we assist? If they had to give you that platform, what would your first response be to that?
Yeah, I think for me, the first thing is to put them all through like a creative workshop, because what we have lost is our ability to create solutions, and it's a mindset. You need to be able to believe that you can manifest your ideas. And so often people are discouraged from art. Like if you tell your parents, "I want to be an artist," they're like, no, find a real job. Now that fear is based on like the experience of artists in the country. That fear isn't based off the power of creation. Because I do this workshop with ladies at the school where I ask them, name one thing in the room like a, like the school wall. Name one thing that is an artist that had his hand on, and they can't find it. And then someone says, "Oh yeah, that Manichi, that exit Manichi."
Yeah, yeah.
That everybody was like, "Yeah, that thing," because it's visible, right? Then I say, now think a bit deeper. Then someone will say, "Oh, the person's earrings, there's a design." Or then someone says, like a colorful, like the frame of someone's spectacles. Then someone will say, "Oh, look at that guy's T-shirt or the school emblem." And then it starts growing into that design on the T-shirt itself, the school uniform, the shoes, the chair, the table. Then someone put their hand up and say, the whole wall was designed by an architect. Then my next question, if creation creates everything, why are you dissuaded from being creative? And inevitably a laity will say, because someone's making money off of all of this.
Sure.
You get what I mean? So it's like just a shifting in our thinking of the power of solving a problem is also based on being creative. But you have to have that switch turned on in your mind to be like, okay, I'm actually writing a book about this called Creating Solutions, because
Really,
I feel like that is key to a lot of, like, I mean, whenever I go, like now that I came from this thing, right, they got people from the world, like around the world, who are working with health and wellness and mental health. They come into the artist to say, how can you assist in sharing this information with young people? How can you assist in making us think different? How can you assist as an artist so we can be creative with finding alternative ways? So it's almost like that part was switched off for such a long time that people are now seeking like artistic solutions. So I feel like that would be my first workshop with them, with them to realize the power that it has, you know what I mean?
Okay.
And
so Emile, so you are saying you would take government and you would walk them through the experience others would get.
Exactly. Because
Okay,
I feel like you have to, like once you internalize a message, is much more powerful than just hearing it. You know, if I should tell them a story and show them how the story can be turned into a book, and the book can be turned into illustration, and the illustration can be turned into animation, and animation into a movie, and all the related products connected to that, and we have stories for days. Imagine how much could change the economics of a lot of people, you know, to actually buy what is created locally.
I couldn't agree more. And if any ministers or politicians are watching this right now, let's take Emile up on that offer, and let's do that workshop. Emile, talking about action, in one of your interviews, you were saying that b-boying versus emceeing. B-boying is action, emceeing is more talking. Can you please just share with us that lesson of how important action really is?
Yeah, I think, human beings generally, if you look at kids, they will, if a parent drinks or smokes, it's so much harder to convince your kid not to do that, because they're learning from your action, not your words. Like if you show them a certain thing, like I a few years ago, I wrote the book, Reconnect the String. And in my reconnection, I realized most of the things I do is because of my mom and my dad. Like I teach because they both, my mom taught at school and my dad was a coach, soccer coach. And so I'm a combination of that lessons that they showed me. And then like related things like me sending the lighties to Battle of the Year. My father used to do like car drives in the garage to raise money. My mother them used to sell like, curry and rice so they could raise the money. And I did the same thing. It's only afterwards I remembered that I'm actually just copying what I saw,
Sure.
So yeah, you know what I mean?
Wow. That's so true. It's so true. It's much more powerful, hey, showing someone than telling someone.
Exactly.
I couldn't do. Yeah. The lessons that you've learned through going and spending and meeting the Bushman community. You say it's one of the oldest African tribes on the planet. And Emile, you were sharing some of the similarities between the aerosol art and the rock art, storytelling and emceeing. What are some of the similarities you've seen between the Bushman and hip hop?
Yeah, for me, it's about like I'm always searching for what is our local connection, to anything that comes our way, and why I'm attracted to it. And so, like, if you think about, they are very confident as a people. They have a way of that as they are enough. People look at them and like, oh, they're just wearing this phallagy, but that's all they need. They didn't actually even need that. As they are, like, if you give them something and they don't need it, then what's the use of it? A society that is almost hides behind clothing and wealth and all these things, whereas the Bushman is like, as I am, I'm enough. And as I go, I don't need to take things with me that are of no use, And so it's and even like the tradition of like the small family unit was based on the fact that they had to be able to pick up and run, and you can only pick up and run with like 2 lighties, and that's it. Otherwise, you know what I mean? So it's a historic, like the minimalist idea actually almost like was born from this very first people, right? And then the other thing that like as a contrast to hip hop, is this idea that to be able to walk into the circle without fear. Like when I teach young people they're always afraid. They're like, and if you think about the Bushmen, they sat in a circle around a fire, they clapped hands, they supported each other, So if you wanted to go, you weren't fearful, and I actually did a tour with the First Nation community. We did like a Boal technique theater production about land reclamation in Platfontein and like other Bushman communities. Okay. And they, at the drop of a hat, would just get up and be part of the show. Because the Boal technique is you take over a certain role. And I was the agitator in the play. I was this like aggressive bra. And every place we went, they took over my role and showed how you could find a peaceful solution. I cried every time. I couldn't believe after all they've been through. Like they've been the first ones to get the heel of oppression, like colonialism. And their nature is to find a peaceful solution to the problem. I was like, yo, it was a hell of a lesson. So for me, like, I think as a contrast to hip hop, often hip hop is seen as very aggressive. This is almost like a First Nation way of looking at, like, what is real power is not your insecurity. Sure. It's your sense of self-worth, right? That's really real power. Your ability to stand in front of people and just be confident in your history. It goes back to the beginning of time, which a lot of us don't have. And a lot of us are fronting. That's why people have all this bling on and they act all macho. It's because of insecurity, right? And so it's been a massive lesson, just like hanging in that community with them and seeing how, like, they are very underappreciated in the country, because I think like the people who speak Afrikaans come from the Bushmen actually. It's actually the original, Kratoa and Achimau. They were the first ones to actually, Achimatu were the first, your name as Heri di Strandloper, yeah. Like he was first to communicate with the Portuguese, the British and the Dutch. And so they use those languages to create a different language, which is Afrikaans. So like you just said and is actually yes in Bushman language, and is no. And when I heard that, it blew my mind. I was like, I thought it just sounds right. Like the other words in Afrikaans, like Goga and Kriki, Kwaga, Daga and Aitsa, those are all Bushman Koi Govab words that are in Afrikaans. Abba, another word. Yeah, bruh. Sure. And then there's like words from the Indonesian archipelago, obviously, the words like Pirang and Blacang and Pisang. When you say that they like, oh, those are actually words from our country. So we in Cape Town, this language is whoever came to Cape Town contributed to this language that we speak in Cape Town, that holds our heritage, and that nobody told us, my bro. Nobody told us. And then people who Teta Isiklasa, that click there, that is actually a Bushman contribution. People who dance Twana dance, that's also the Bushman like traditional. So there's all of these cultures have a meeting at some point with these people who are now almost not even seen. It's just amazing. This means
Emile, I'm speechless because for 37 years on this planet, I didn't know the very thing you are saying right now. And I'm sure there's people in their 70s, 80s that also didn't know that certain words we use is not just local slang that we use, but it's actually there's an origin that goes all the way back. A part of me wonders, and I think this is probably something that you would probably be a forerunner from when it comes to like hypothetically speaking, we were saying that the government's going to write you $1 billion check. This will probably be the educational piece that you will continue to do, eh?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we've been doing this in 15 schools using art and like getting lighties to learn about themselves, right? And I mean, because we're in the Western Cape, it's very difficult. Because people when you speak history, people think you're trying to like push the racial divide. That's almost like a defense mechanism. When in actual fact, the only way we can solve gangsterism and drugs and the crime in our country is if people again have a sense of self-worth. Like if you think colonialism, slavery, apartheid, it removed people's sense of value. It took away their humanity. So if you rehumanize people, you give them their sense of humanity back, then you will address the issue of like because gangs is about belonging, right? The sense of belonging. So if you feel, okay, now I'm part of this country, I'm part of the history of this country, I'm embedded here, I have a sense of self-worth, I'm equal, because equality is actually about me knowing as much about you as you know about me. It's not equal if I know your history and you know nothing about me,
True.
So that's like the work we've been doing with young people in the schools. But before I did it in the schools, I took 4 lighties from Lavendale and I took them with me everywhere. It was a practical hip hop school. 2 of them got to go to perform at the Kennedy Center in USA.
Sure.
And they blew men's minds over that. But the lesson was 2-way. The people there came to them and said, this is the best thing we've ever seen on the stage. And they were like, they turned to me and said, Emile, no verstaan. Like, now I know what you meant when you said bring yourself when you perform, you know what I mean? Because for me, it's like, and then those ones I'm speaking about now teach in the schools. So I'm not even here in Cape Town, and they're the ones like carrying on this message, to like connection. So for me, it's like, how can you like duplicate that in other provinces? Because obviously there's a slightly different heritage in different places that needs to be, but it also needs to be open enough to be asking questions like, okay, so where are we really from? Who are we really a combination of? Like even the Zulu community, like I asked this of some Zulu owns, like, Shaka went around and he basically conquered numerous tribes of people and then put them together and forced them to be labeled as Zulu. And they were like, And then I was like, yeah, did you understand what I'm saying? It's not like you say it's the people of the heavens. It's not actually. It's the people that were constructed. What was your original connection? What was your original tribe that you were a part of that was now forced into this situation? And they were like, for the first time, they also like, huh? Yeah. I mean, Shaka actually even gave a Scottish or Welsh guy, or some European dude, a kingdom. He was a white Zulu chief that had over 100 mixed lighties in KwaZulu-Natal. I didn't even know this.
Really?
He had over 100 lighties, this bra, from like Europe, but he's a Zulu chief. So like, where's that lighties? And
fascinating, Fascinating. Emile, thank you so much for just blowing our minds and just sharing with us things that we didn't know and just making us fall in love more and more with our country. And for those that are still watching, thank you for spending and giving us your heartbeat, spending it with myself and Emile. We've got about 15 minutes left. Emile, this show is really centered around how do we stay driven on a daily? And I'd really like to know by you, when it comes to just your journey, was there a time in your life, Emile, where you thought, was there a low moment in your life that you thought you weren't going to make it out of? And if so, do you mind taking us there? I know there's probably one or two, if not more, but whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
For me, I feel the two of the toughest moments were during like 85 when I was at high school. And I came home after a mass rally and my mom said, this will never change. This will always be how this country is. And that, it broke my heart, but also I can understand, your parents want to keep you safe, So that was one moment. The second moment was when I left teaching. It was so difficult, because I was like, I cannot teach other Africans this European information about, I can't teach them this. This can't be how we change the country. So that's the second one. Because when you're a teacher on the Cape Flats, you next step is to buy a house and be indebted for the rest of your life, get married. And I was like, yo, peace out. And more recently, being in the United States and people judging you by how you look and how they can't identify with your don't want to be inclusive of your knowledge, your lived experience, because it doesn't in their agenda, it doesn't fit in their agenda economically, So those are probably the moments where I was like, yo, this is tough. This is, I got to find a way, but it's tough to stay on course. Because and I'll end with this, but I feel like we all are sent. And I know this sounds very, African, but I believe we all are sent. We are sent to do a certain job. And I feel like all of those times I mentioned were moments where I was almost distracted from the journey, and for almost like I was tested if it still is where I was supposed to go. I know it's education. I know it's about Afrocentricity and about the road to equality as humans on the planet. I know that is the journey that I'm supposed to be on. But I just think at some points, you're thrown a opportunity that could potentially distract you from where you're supposed to go. And so I'm very weary of those opportunities because they are very distracting.
Thanks for sharing that, Emile. I'm taken back to what you just mentioned about when your mom shared with you regarding the country. Some of us back home in South Africa might feel this way right now, where they feel like, there's no hope. The economy, prices are high. The economy is not the greatest. The political situation is shaky. They feel like there's no hope for that individual, Emile, that feels like there's no hope currently for their own personal lives. What's one or two things that comes to your mind to share with that individual?
In all of the cases I mentioned, the only way that I was able to get out of it was to sit in silence and to really examine and I know different people have different techniques. I obviously loved being outside, walking bare feet on the grass, taking a walk on the beach and put my feet in the water. I know it's freezing out here now, but but that's my thing, right? Just so I can connect to the earth and with myself. Because I feel one of the first lessons we teach at the schools is, where do you see me? And the kids were like, what do you mean? You see me? I see you in front of me. I said, no. Think about it. Where do you see me? And they're like, oh, you mean the reflection, I actually see you in my head. Like, where do you hear me? In my head. So we experience the whole world inside ourselves, but we constantly worry with what's happening outside, which we don't have much control. So when we have that conversation with kids, they're like, I'm actually, the world is within me, So if I want to change it, it's simple in my perception of things. I can change it. If I'm hopeless, I can be hopeful. I can project my dream into reality. If I'm going to stay on the hopelessness, I'm not going to come back. So when we tell them, what did you like to see manifest? And they were like, yeah, I want to change this and that. And I'm like, okay, now what's the first step? They're like, we need money. I say, no, what's the first step? And like one lady will say, I just have to get up. And even just that, like that idea, I just have to get up. I just have to take the first step. That in itself is change, because you're manifesting the movement that goes with the idea, So it's been like just hearing kids are amazing. Kids are like, I'm always like listening to what the lighties are saying, because I mean, there's a whole of Owens. Like I'm actually on TikTok also because I see the younger generation have like what's his name, Samantha Jansen, and those Owens. What's his name, Darren Camp. I am blown away by the thinking, the innovation, the usage of social media to mobilize people. So I'm saying like a lot of people will tell me, the light is this, the light. I'm like, you're looking in the wrong place. You need to look online where they're having these conversations. I'm very impressed with the next generation that's out there.
Emile, that was so profound. Taking the first step, and you essentially saying, Emile, literally taking the first step, like the kid said, getting out of bed. And I think that's such a powerful reminder for us to the first step towards our goal is actually literally the first step, like taking your foot and standing out of bed and getting up. And thanks for sharing that, man. That will be one thing I will definitely take away from this interview, just especially when it comes to overcoming procrastination, and having that analysis paralysis, always just thinking about it and thinking, but never taking action. We've learned today from Emile JANSEN, just taking that, literally that first, take your left leg and take your hands and just take that step. Emile, you mentioned throughout, and we've got 5 more minutes left. You mentioned throughout this this interview that you've got a love for writing books. Like you're currently busy with one right now. With your book projects and with everything else you're doing, and I know we alluded to this earlier, for someone that's watching this right now, number one, how can they connect with you? But even more importantly, in what way can we assist you as a people?
I think to look at, not just me, but I think just people who write generally, is to look around you in your community. Who is writing? What books are they writing? And how can you encourage people to tell quiet stories? That is so desperately needed. Like this, we went to let me tell you the story. Went to a school. The thing I told you about, tell your story. I put it in a book, turn it into illustration. So we at a school here in Lotus River, the Dana, and I also like, if I tell your story, bro, he tells his story. I say, as I'm telling him, you got duidelijke stories. Tell your story, man. Someone else was writing it. One of the other lighties were writing it down. Another kid was sketching what he was writing, and we looked at it and we're like, my bro, we need to create this book for this lighting. You know what I'm saying? And the others were saying, that like they were saying, Soek knows a story. That's how they know a story to be told. And so the idea that our community doesn't read is maybe also because you're not giving them stories the way they know stories. The story is told with your whole body muscle, right? And sound effects. You know what I mean? And so that for me was like such an eye-opener that this lighties, one, there's always the lighty that the teacher saying, I can't read and isn't the quickest that can tell the best stories, And so we as teachers must also ask ourselves the question, are we really catering for the kids in the community? And what is the way they speak? And what is the story that really can impact them, that is actually related, like stories that are, what do they call it, culturally relevant stories. Like, they live in Lotus River. What is this? What is the reality? What language do they speak? If they talk Kaps, then let them speak in Kaps. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So those type of, so for me, like, get to your question, is for people to encourage people to tell their stories and to support those who are telling the stories, because out of the story can come, a whole line of products.
Yeah.
You know this? You remember the story Gamachina Dolce?
You know, I don't remember the
That's
story, but
before
I
your
know the name.
generation.
It sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So my question to a lot of parents: imagine somebody created a comic back in the day of that story. We would have an image, we'd have an animation, maybe even a TV show. But because it just
True, eh?
remained in the community, that story is probably going to just only survive with the older generation. So that's
And I
the
can
power.
imagine, and I can imagine there's probably so many other stories that's untold that if marketing was behind it, it would have
Woo!
become such a. And this is what I admire from the States is where they've got the power of the marketing. They know how to market their product
Yep.
really well. And so true with what you are saying with Hamachi and Abdulchi. If we
Yep.
had that comic,
Yep.
man,
They'd have been like bedroom. What do they say? Like pillowcases. How much enough Dolce pillowcases and pajamas and sockies.
man, yeah. The branding.
You know.
Emile, we've come closer to the end of
No problem.
of a conversation. Before I share with you just my final thoughts, for those that's watching this right now, Emile, from South Africa, from Cape Town, South Africa, any last words that you have for the people of South Africa?
Remain hopeful. You know, it's again, I'll quote Credo Mutwa. He said South Africans are like a people who live on a beautiful mountain. They can only see the beauty of the mountain when they leave the mountain and look at it from afar. So yeah, and it is extremely beautiful for those who have gone far. They know that. Yeah, and you asked me about the books. My books are actually on Amazon. And Emile JANSEN, there's about 4 there at the moment. So if people from around the world want to support, all the money from the books actually go to Heal the Wood Project. So I write to make sure that the organization benefits.
Wonderful. And we'll leave the links. You can certainly send me the links via email. We'll leave it in the description of this episode. The work that you're doing in the community, the amount of information that you're sharing, that is just mind-blowing about our history. That's something I salute you for, Emile. Emile, sometimes it can feel like a thankless job. Sometimes it can feel like you don't see the rewards immediately. Especially with kids, you see the rewards when they are 20, 21, and they come up to you and they say, hey, Emile, I was in your class back when I was, 5, 6, and I still remember the lessons you've taught me. And that's kind of the rewards that we get and yourself gets eventually. But as of today, Emile, on behalf of North America, where I'm located currently, on behalf of the entire South Africa, Cape Town, we want to salute you and thank you for all the hard work that you've done. Well done, Emile. Well done. Well done. Any last words on your side before we wrap up, my brother?
No, just we gotta keep on keeping on, and I'm always looking forward to see like the young people that are bringing the new changes and I hope that South Africa gets more young people involved in the control of the country and making the changes that are necessary for their generation. And the old men need to step out of the way of Bichinaman,
Right.
You know what I mean? Give the younger people opportunity to run the country because it's their future that's important right now, not the memory of what was, you know what I mean?
I hear you. Emile JANSEN, Driven Dailies, thank you so much for joining us. And like we always say, remember, we are not here just to survive. We are here to thrive. Emile, you have a great week ahead, eh?
You too. Keep well, man.
Sure. Take care, sir.